Episode 6 The Danger in the Eye of Detection. In addition to all the wishes Keith needed to make to pass the college entrance exams, there was a hidden danger in using the Eye of Detection. In other people's eyes, he was only giving and not getting anything in return. Once or twice was fine, but in the long run, his reputation would grow. He would either become known as someone who was willing to help others, or people would think that he had ulterior motives. No matter which way they went, he would end up attracting attention. If someone were to realize how much his skills had suddenly advanced, it could put him in a difficult position. He had to use the Eye of Detection and obtain its attributes, but he also had to learn to control it within a reasonable range. The problem now was, how could he get into a prestigious college within 15 days? After thinking for a long time, an idea flashed into his mind. He said quietly, "System, I want to make a wish. I wish to have the ability to remember information after seeing it only once." Ding! Host hopes to have the ability to instantly remember information after seeing it once. Are you sure? Keith was delighted when he heard the system's response. There was no indication that this wish wasn't feasible. He quickly confirmed it. Ding! Wish successful. Host has obtained a skill, Instant Memorization. Instant Memorization skill. Your memory has been enhanced to the maximum score of 100%. As the system's words rang out, a warm feeling rose from the bottom of Keith's heart and surged into his mind. He had already gained the skill. Ding! Congratulations to the host for completing his first earned wish. Special attribute activated, Charm. Description: as charm value increases, your appearance, demeanor, temperament, and other aspects will increase accordingly. Description: charm value cannot be increased using attribute points. Each time you make a wish, charm value will automatically increase by 1 point. Keith was stunned when he heard this. He opened his attributes panel and saw that underneath the stamina value, there was now an additional attribute labeled Charm, which currently had a value of 1. What the? I didn't even know there was a Charm attribute. Keith muttered in disbelief. He walked to the edge of the pond and looked down. Under the moonlight, the reflection of a handsome young man's face was reflected in the lake. I seem to have become handsome? Keith laughed. He'd never really cared whether he was handsome or not. But thinking about it now, of course it would have its advantages. But what he cared most about right now was his new instant memorization skill. With that in mind, he got up and hurried back to the ward. After returning to his room, he picked up a magazine and quickly flipped through it before throwing it aside. Then he began to recall the content. After a minute, a smile spread over his face. The articles in the magazine did appear in his mind one by one. Not bad at all. Nice! Keith laughed out loud. With this skill, he could skim through textbooks and remember everything in one go. But it was too late today. He suppressed his excitement and quickly got ready for bed. The night passed uneventfully. Early the next morning, Keith changed his clothes and left his ward. He planned to register for the college entrance exam and buy some textbooks simultaneously. Just as he arrived at the entrance to the hospital, a clear voice called his name from behind him. He turned to see who it was, and his eyes lit up. It was the young nurse from yesterday who he had helped to find the missing anesthetic. He had thought she was pretty when she was in her uniform, but now that she was changed into a casual dress with her hair loose around her shoulders, she looked even more beautiful. Even compared to Christina, she held her own. Coming closer, the nurse smiled and said, "I didn't have time to thank you yesterday, so thank you." Keith nodded and said, "I also have something I didn't get to ask you yesterday." The young nurse was curious. "What's that?" "Your name?" Keith looked at her with a serious expression. "Ah." The nurse looked at Keith in a daze for a moment, before she suddenly burst into laughter. "You look so serious. I thought it was something big. My name is Ari Park." "Ari? Good name," Keith said quietly. Keith looked at the red light coming from the nurse and laughed. You must be hungry after work, right? How about I treat you to breakfast?" "Huh?" Ari's eyebrows shot up, and she instinctively touched her stomach, whispering, "How did you know I was thinking about breakfast?" But Keith had already started walking. The pair arrived at the breakfast cafe, and Keith ordered 2 large servings of waffles with bacon. Ari was famished, and she beamed at him before starting to eat. Ding! You fulfilled Ari's wish to eat breakfast. Wish value +1. Progress 1 of 10. Keith smiled and made a start on his stack of waffles. As the two of them were eating, the young man suddenly leaned over from a nearby table and said, "Ari?" Ari jumped in surprise. A trace of uneasiness appeared on her face when she saw who it was. "Dr. Connor, what are you doing here?" The doctor moved closer and said with an excited smile, "Why didn't you tell me you were working in a different hospital? I had asked around forever before I found out you were here at Summerfield General. I came here to find you." Ari gently moved to Keith's side and stuttered, We aren't compatible. Please, don't bother me again." "Huh?" The young man's face sank when he heard that. He sneered. "Not compatible? Have you forgotten who saved your father's life?" Ari's eyes grew damp, and she said in a trembling voice, "You cured my father, and I'm very grateful, but we also paid you. Please, don't come looking for me again." The young man looked at her tearful expression and then glanced around the cafeteria. He noticed that people were starting to look over at them, and he sighed and said gently, "Don't cry, Ari. Feelings can be nurtured." As he spoke, he took out a thick book and said, "Don't you want to learn TCM? I have the treatise on cold, pathogenic, and miscellaneous diseases that this famous doctor wrote. I'll give it to you. Are you free tomorrow? Shall we have dinner together?" Ari stuttered, Tomorrow. At a loss, she looked over at Keith and said anxiously, "Keith, didn't we make plans to see a movie tomorrow?" She blinked rapidly at Keith. Keith's mouth dropped a little. It seemed that Ari was using him to deflect this creepy doctor's attention. Keith sighed to himself and looked at the young man. He smiled and said, "Sorry, Dr. Connor. Nurse Park did agree to accompany me to the movies." Ding! You fulfilled Ari's wish to avoid Dr. Connor. Wish value +1. Current progress 2 of 10. Dr. Connor's face fell when he heard this. He looked at Keith coldly and said, "And may I know who exactly you are?" Keith shrugged and said, "One of her patients." "Her patient?" Dr. Connor sneered and said, "I'm asking who you are. What's your profession?" Summerfield Society had its rules. Before you decide to deal with a person, you look first at their profession, then at their income, and then at their relationships. Keith replied, "I'm a police support staff." ask?" Dr. Connor scoffed at Keith's reply. A few of the other patrons in the cafeteria looked at Keith with disdain as well.